In this video, we're going to look at Tesla's new full self-driving Beta V9 and explain why Tesla is a major buy. This company is seriously undervalued and has massive growth ahead. Welcome to my channel, The Paper Bag Investor, where we're always looking for the next multi-bagger investment. Don't take my advice. Nothing on this channel is personal financial advice, but I have been investing since about 2009 with a 30% compound annual growth rate over that time. If you get value out of this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Also, feel free to join my Patreon community that is growing. Every tier I have in the Patreon community has the same benefits, but the lowest price tiers are capped for the number of people that can sign up. So there's incentive to join early and join now. Okay, with all those intros out of the way, let's jump into the video. And this is an important video because every day I see people on Twitter talking about their growth stock portfolios and revealing their growth stock portfolios, but they don't even own Tesla. Or if they do, it's just a tiny little sliver of their portfolio. So watch this video to understand why Tesla is a buy, a major buy, and stick around to the end of the video to see what percentage of my portfolio is in Tesla stock. Tesla recently released their full self-driving Beta V9 software. This has been a long time coming and heavily hyped by Elon on Twitter. And so far it's living up to the hype, with many full self-driving beta testers saying it is smoother and more human-like than the previous software. Like Galley's description the best, it's buttery smooth.
Now the car seems to be a lot more confident, just generally moving a lot smoother, like more buttery.
So this is really encouraging to see because V9 is running only on vision alone. There's no radar being used at all. There's only the 8 cameras is the only sensory input that the Teslas are using, which was a very controversial move and change to delete the radar that Elon and Carpathy made. So the fact that it is working better than the 8.2 version, for at least most testers would describe it that way, that is very encouraging to see. Many people believe full self-driving is impossible, but I really believe that Tesla will do it. Why is that? I tweeted about this, and I tweeted basically, a summary of this is that they have a clear goal and are iteratively improving towards that goal with a strategy that makes sense. And if you do that for any goal in mind, really just about anything is possible if the strategy makes sense at a detailed level. And their strategy, I think it makes sense because it's mimicking how we humans drive our own vehicles. We drive our own vehicles with our eyes and a brain that can understand objects of the world and how they move throughout the world. Eyes on our head, but in a Tesla's case, eyes on all sides of the car that can see that world. Using this approach with a neural network techniques or software 2.0 techniques, the brain of understanding behind the Tesla can be trained with enough data that is clean from a large data set and is diverse data. And Tesla has an ever-growing data set that meets these criteria. So I think if we keep seeing improvements from Tesla with each software update, which we are, eventually Tesla will achieve full self-driving, safer driving than a human, more consistent than a human, and regulators, I think, will approve it. Okay, so what does this mean for the stock? It has some mind-blowing consequences. So I'm going to bring up an evaluation and walk through this. So here's a quick napkin math valuation of what Tesla's robotaxis could be worth in the future. And I've revealed this before in previous videos, but I feel like it's so important to A, update it over time as the data gets refined, and B, just bang the gong and and shout this from the rooftops, because again, I feel this is so important for people to know and understand if you are investors and you're looking for opportunities that could be huge multi-baggers. Okay, so let's look at Tesla's robotaxi valuation. This is from July 10th when I'm filming this, 2021. If their vehicle deliveries, first of all, if they grow at a 40% compound annual growth rate from 2020 to 2030, so you go from about 500,000 vehicles in 2020 to 14.5 million in the year 2030. If they grow it, and that's 40% compound annual growth rate. Of course, Tesla wants to go even higher, faster than that, and get to 20 million unit sales a year before 2030 is their kind of the goal they've sort of said. But I'm assuming a little more conservative 40% growth rate. So from 2020 to 2030, you'd have about 50 million vehicles in existence. All the vehicles sold during that time, you add that up, it's about 50 million. If you assume 20% are used as robotaxis full time, that means 10 million robotaxis are in a fleet, and so kind of full-time robotaxis. Obviously, there's going to be a distribution of some robotaxis that are used, just part-time, and then they're run by their owner the rest of the time, and some that are fully maxed out full-time. But we're assuming 20% full time. Okay, so 10 million robotaxis in the fleet, and for each robotaxi, if they can do 100,000 miles a year, so a lot of miles, but they're driving around and around and around, basically whenever there is demand for a robotaxi, they can go drive and do a ride. So 100,000 miles a year, and we're going to assume 50% billable miles per year, which actually I've done some research on that, is probably more realistically a higher number. The more, than 50% billable miles is probably more like 60 some percent on a billable miles basis. That a vehicle could do. You drive and do one long route, and then you park somewhere and wait, or you go recharge. Your robotaxi recharges its power, and then it drives somewhere else or nearby place and picks someone else up and drives a more further distance than it did on the in-between drive, is so on. But I'm doing 50% because I'm trying to make this again conservative. So 50,000 billable miles a year, and if they can charge $1.25 per billable mile, that's $62,000 in revenue. And to make this clear, this number, $1.25, I think will drop in price over time. I think companies like Uber, Lyft, there's something more. It's closer to like $2 a billable mile right now. So $1.25 is very, very competitive if you're just picking up a robotaxi or catching that. But as robotaxis become more and more immersive, this number, some of the costs can maybe be driven down further, and this pricing will drive down further. But by 2030, the amount of there's only 50 million robotaxis in the entire world. I think this is a reasonable price. Okay, so then you have, and I'm costing. The costs are 55 cents per billable mile, which works out to about $28,000 in expenses. This 55 cents per billable mile of costs is on another spreadsheet I will link in the description down below, that I have done some research on my own kind of cost comparisons of what it might take to own a robotaxi. So I think that's realistic for a billable mile. So obviously for every mile it's going to be double, or half of that is your total cost for every that. That includes every other mile that's not billable. But anyways, 55 cents per billable mile, $28,000 in expenses. You have a net profit of about $34,000 a year per robotaxi, and assume maybe $20,000 goes to the vehicle owner, $14,000 to Tesla. Obviously that split's going to be dynamically created so that people are incentivized to own and operate their robotaxi fleets, but whatever's left over, Tesla is going to take. So I'm assuming that's $14,000 a year. Okay, and then robotaxi operating profit of $140 billion. So you get 14,000 times about your 10 million, gives you $140 billion just from having this software in your vehicles, as Tesla only in 50 million vehicles, a growing fleet. Okay, and assume there's a 21% tax rate. That gives a net profit of about $110 billion for Tesla. We apply a PE of 50 to the net profit, gives a $5.5 trillion market cap from robotaxi side of Tesla alone. Now, even this multiple of 50, I think, is actually probably too low. It could be 100, it could be 150, it could be 200. Like, it's seriously, because there's if Tesla achieves full self-driving, there's a pretty good chance maybe nobody else has achieved it up to that point. Maybe somebody else has by 2030, but even there's a good chance nobody else has. If that's the case, they have a wide open market just to grow and capture market. And at this point in sort of our comparison, they only have 50 million vehicles on the road. There's probably capacity for 500 million vehicles on the road. So there's going to be a very large multiple that's going to be applied to the business. So 50 is probably too conservative, but again, trying to be conservative so we kind of have a realistic point, and then there's huge upside even beyond that. So 50 PE to 5.5 gives you that $5.5 trillion market cap from robotaxi alone for Tesla. And then you add that to the vehicle side of the market, which I've done in some other videos. I'm not going to do it here, but I've estimated that at about $2.7 trillion just for the vehicle sales themselves. Gives a market cap of about $8.2 trillion in the year 2030, so about 9 years from now. 8.2 trillion by 633 billion, today's market cap when I'm recording this. It's about a 13x increase. Pretty good. Over 9 years, 13x increase is about a 33% compound annual growth rate. Outstanding growth rate over that time. Of course, it might not happen linearly. The growth of the stock might not grow linearly over that time. Probably won't. but there might be stretches where the market just sits or it goes up and down, and then it might surge 10x in a year's time. Like, again, I don't know, that could happen a couple years from now, that could happen 5 or 6 years from now, 8 years from now, or maybe it's going to be more of a linear curve or linear line across that 13x. We'll see how it happens. But either way, I think this is very possible and it's actually fairly conservative with potential upside beyond this, because this is only 50 million robotaxis. There's something like 1.5 to 2 billion vehicles on the roads today. Robotaxis are going to be used much more efficient usage of time, probably like a 5x time of sort of usage capacity over a vehicle now. So you're not going to need as many vehicles now if every car became a robotaxi, but there's probably going to be capacity for like several hundred million to hundreds of millions, maybe 500 million robotaxis out there. And also robotaxis could be used for things that we don't use currently today, like transporting goods and services, or goods, but people aren't even in them. So all that to say, there's huge potential, and the P ratio of 50 that I gave here, I think, is probably too conservative. And then beyond that, it's important to remember that this is only for Tesla's vehicle side and their full self-driving robotaxi side. Of course, there could be other sides of the business, like energy storage, solar, for example, that could be also major parts of the business by then. So I hope that makes a compelling argument to you of why Tesla is a major buy right now. And as you're seeing these full self-driving beta V9 videos come out, I hope they inspire you or give you added confidence that incremental improvement towards full self-driving continues to march towards that pace. Of course, there is risk. We don't know. We're not there yet. But it seems like, to me, Tesla has the right strategy, the right approach, and they're making those steps to get there. Now, you might be wondering what percentage of my portfolio is in Tesla. It's about 90% or so of my portfolio. So it's a massive amount of my portfolio. And that kind of concentration is not for everyone, but I feel comfortable with it because I have such a high conviction behind the possible outcomes for Tesla. Even if they don't achieve full self-driving, even if they never come to fruition, I think they're still going to dominate the electrical vehicle space and be a huge player there and be a multi-trillion-dollar company in the next 10 years or so. So they still could do a 4x, which really is not a bad return over sort of a 9-10 year period. They could do something like that, 4 or 5x I could see, even if they never achieved full self-driving. But if they do achieve full self-driving, it's kind of the sky's the limit. There's these scenarios that I'm laying out and beyond. That's why I'm comfortable holding about 90% of my portfolio in Tesla, and then I'm looking for other opportunities that I'm continuing to add. If there are opportunities that I have as much conviction or growing conviction as like I do with Tesla, Lemonade is one company I really love and talk about a lot, then I'm gonna keep adding to those positions as well. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe for more and hit that thumbs up as well. You can also find me on Twitter at PaperBagInvest. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, it's in the bag. Cheers.